boss mode. We are two best friends who happen to be psychic mediums.
We do readings, we teach, we mentor, and we love to laugh.
Yeah, and you know what? We love to cry too, because we're heartstring pulling leather truckers.
Warning, this is rated E for explicit, so if you don't like the word fuck, you should probably turn your ass around.
Turn it around. Don't look back, run. But if you're sticking around, it's time for another episode of I'm a Medium.
Ask me how. Matthew Tao.
Hiya, Willie. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
How's life? I'm not bad.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready for another episode
of I'm a Medium, Ask Me How. I mean, I guess that should be the podcast we're recording. Otherwise, this would be awkward.
Awkward.
Sorry.
Well, Data Willie, guess what?
What?
I think we need to get a little bit more grounded. I think we've done an episode on You're Grounded anyway.
Yeah, I like hugging trees. Yeah. But we're not going to talk about hugging trees. Stop, drop, cinnamon roll. You don't have to run away. We're not going to have a whole episode on hugging trees today. Don't worry.
No. But I think we need to talk about being grounded in spirituality.
Yes.
It's getting a little crazy out there, Willie. If I'm being truly transparent, my FYP looks like a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like a cult intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to talk, because I think it's really relevant, especially in today's times with the distrust going on in media and all that cool stuff, about being a little bit more grounded into where we live.
Yes. Out on these mean streets of spirituality. It's a little crazy out there, and having some discernment in our spiritual practices is a good thing. And we always want to encourage it. And, not believing everything that you read, not believing everything you see. And it's hard, right? Let's just take a moment and realize why somebody would want to do this, right? We have to understand that the spiritual world is intangible, right? It could be very easy for me to be like, this is a Yeti cup, because it's a Yeti cup. You can see it. I can touch it. You can feel it, right? But spirituality is different, right? It's not as tangible. And sometimes we're taking somebody's word for it, or somebody is new to their spiritual journey. So we're depending on somebody else's experience to be like, well, this is how they said they got there, or this is their experience. So I'm comparing myself to their journey. So because we're dealing with something intangible, a lot of times people get taken advantage of because of this. A lot of times there can be people that put themselves on a pedestal, or put other people on pedestals, because there's this intangibility about this. That's the big reason why there's this reason. You don't see this on other platforms or other things, right?
Well, I think you do. I think you do in some certain aspects. I think, especially with the climate that we live in America, and we don't talk about politics here, and I'm a medium, ask me how, because we're mediums. But there's a layer of distrust. And I just want to, you said a word, and words have meaning, that some people don't know what the word discernment means. It truly means what you feel is the truth and what you feel is not the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And kind of using our self-judgment on whether something is for us or not for us. And so what works for you is always what works for you. But I think there's a little bit of what I like to call disassociation going on in the spiritual community, of you'll hear the words like NPC, non-playable character. That's such a disassociative word. That's almost saying that nobody else exists except me, because I'm in my own perspective. And it almost makes it detachable. You are not part of the human race. And so I want to let you all know everyone is real. We all just see things from our own perspective. Everyone is a playable character in this 7 billion populated world. It's just, I think what we are is we're disassociating ourselves from reality. And we're also cutting people from being real, and our empathy wanes on that.
Mhm. You just touched on something, and because you did it beautifully in talking about what is dissociation, but then you have somebody throwing
Mhm.
around words like NPC, ascension, all of these like buzzwords of what's this, and it can be a little gatekeepy, it can be pedestalized, it can be whatever. And then also people can misconstrue what something might mean for the timeline jumping and all of this, and it can get
Yeah.
very confusing out there. So I appreciate you taking a moment to like say, let's say what discernment means. So always asking those questions too of like, what does this mean to you? Because also from
Mhm.
practitioner to practitioner, they may have a different viewpoint on what something else is for that definition of that
Mhm.
word. And let me just say one
Yep.
thing too. Matt and I don't know if y'all have known this yet, but me and Matt are best friends, and we have a lot of things in common. We have a lot of things that we love. We love Marvel movies, we love mediumship, we love a lot of things. But are we the same person? No. Do we agree on all of the
Mm-mm.
same things? Nope.
No.
We have
Do
we
we
have
practice all the same things?
nope.
Mm-mm.
So we can each have our own unique path. So something that resonates for me isn't going to resonate for Matthew, and conversely, things that I do aren't
Mhm.
going to resonate for him. We have to find our own path and our own truth. So having that, like, what does that mean to you? NPC, the way that you described it, may not resonate for somebody, right? But in another context,
Mhm.
in the way somebody may describe it, go, okay, well, I can understand it in that context. Not just taking something at face value, but being able to go into it deeper and peeling it back and like, let's talk about
Yeah.
it. Let's have conversations. Also, not dismissing somebody because we may disagree with them on a subject, right?
Correct.
And asking
Mhm.
them a little bit more about it. That's why I love asking people questions like, what does that mean to you? And we actually had a beautiful conversation about that, if you feel comfortable, in Sedona with our friend
Yeah.
Nimue
Yeah.
about timelines, right?
Mhm. So I'm very staunch. So like my issue, and this is my own issue, and it's not even an issue to me, but to other people looking at my perspective is I'm very grounded in realism. I've had to live in this world to be real for 39 years, and it has to be tangible. I also don't like disempowerment, and I don't like people being taken advantage of. Like that's a hard, you want to piss me off? Watch somebody get hurt by the spiritual warfare. And I use spiritual warfare because we use sometimes our spirituality as a weapon to hurt other people. And so I, in my core fiber of my soul of who I am, I don't like to watch people being taken advantage of on something that is um accessible to everybody. That hurts my soul. It's a bastardization of something that I experience with the spirit world every single day to me, and that is like the biggest thing that you can do to offend me, like 100%. And I watch shows about cults, and I watch a lot of education around cults. And I notice culty behavior going on in the spiritual community. And so I speak out about it. Now, am I 100% right? No, no, but at the end of the day, I never want to see somebody get hurt. And I think we also use these words, and we use them in a way like the time jumping and the timeline jumping and ascension and all these words just willy nilly. Like everybody knows what the context of these words mean, and it's just verbiage that we use. That somebody coming into this, it can sound scary as fuck. It can sound scary as fuck, especially when we're using it in context. And then when, and I noticed this, Dana, I don't mean to complain, But when I notice this, and then the person asks, well, what do you mean by that? The practitioner's going, well, you should know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
You're going to be tied to this person's soul for eternity.
Mhm.
And I'm just watching this person's just light become disempowered out of their body. So a really good practitioner should stop and explain the words that they use to you. And so when we were in Sedona, our friend Nimue is just so beautiful and she's so amazing that she used the word timeline jumping. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And so my envisioning of timeline jumping is that we are shifting actual timelines and we are not currently where we are, but we're going into the future, past, or other multiverses. I don't know. It just sounds weird to me. But she's like, no, Matt, it's a choice. You're making a different choice. You're directing your energy on a different path because you just made a different choice. You're physically in this timeline. You're in 2023, but you've now made a choice that's going to improve your life. That doesn't mean that you're actually physically in another. So she took the time to include me on that word, and it made me a little bit more digestible because she used it in a proper context. Now I've seen the opposite.
Mhm.
I've seen the opposite. And so it can cause a lot of fear. So I think when we use words like timeline jumping and all that, just be okay with somebody asking you a question of, well, what do you mean by that?
Mhm.
And are we just using that word to sound powerful and woo woo, or are we actually using it in the proper context?
Mhm. Absolutely. And understanding which in whatever context they're using it in, is it in resonance with us? And if it's not, you don't have
Mhm.
to engage with it. You can stop
Mhm.
at any point. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to like take anything with you. And I always say, like, even if they're like 1 out of 10 things, take 1 out of 10 things and move on, or take 9 out of 10 things and move on. You don't have to take 100% of everything that somebody says. Like I said, Matt and I are best
Mhm.
friends, and we don't agree on 100% of everything that either one of
Yeah.
us believes. And nobody, you shouldn't. You shouldn't agree with anything,
Mm-mm.
100% of everything that everybody agrees. We are all individuals and we have to figure out what is right for us, right? But we have to understand when something is brought forward in to make us fearful, right? When we feel
Yeah.
like we are being left behind, or if we don't do this, then we're going to be left behind. And there is a lot of that language out there that can put us in a fearful state. So we have to be aware of, like, when we take action towards something in spiritual practices, are we doing it because it brings us joy, because we're curious, because we have this soul pull to do it, or are we doing it out of a fear reaction, or because somebody told us we have to? We should always be doing it
Yeah.
because of the first reasons, right? Not because of
Yeah.
obligation, not because of fear, not because of a have to.
Well, what's the purpose of spirituality, really?
I think it's to know ourselves better, really.
Hmm.
To get back
Is
to
it
the
to follow
basis
somebody?
of ourselves, to become
Right.
more
It's to
empowered.
en- enlightened, right? You're
Mhm.
enlightening by the knowledge of spirituality, but it's for you only. Why? And this is an honest question, Dana Willie. You can answer this, but why do I need to listen to somebody else to have a personal relationship with somebody and follow their teachings 100%? Based on what they're telling me. And I am such a curious little duck. Where are you getting this information from?
Mhm.
That's always my first question. That is always my first question. I think to have an amazing spiritual journey, especially when you're listening it come from somebody else's, where did they get that information? Where is that coming from? So if you want to learn how to have proper discernment, it's question everything.
Mhm.
Question everything that's being told to you, even if it's coming from us. Question it. Where are you getting that from? How long have you known that? Can't I look that up from another resource? It's really funny is I've taken a lot of and I'm being transparent, I've taken a lot of the verbiage that's on spiritual talk or spiritual TikTok, and I've tried to break it down to source, like the root of it. And I'm noticing that it's never coming from any other place than a religious spiritual website. And it's not coming from any other like scientific fact based information. So then it, for me, it always, like, if I can't prove it in some sort of like spiritual and science based thing where it's like it can be proven, it's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's a theory and it's a belief, and beliefs and facts are two separate things to me. I think facts are facts and we can't get beyond science. I think science rules our worlds and how we live in this beautiful little place and how it started. And I trust science. I think science always kind of has the right way of having concrete things. I think beliefs are something that we are faith based, and it's more of like where our spirituality comes from, but they can be married together. And I think that's what I love about mediumship, is that mediumship can also be weaved into that beautiful story about the soul and energy and all that cool stuff. But doing the research first of being like, well, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Who told you that?
What I love about both science and beliefs is there's discovery and growth in both. We learn,
Yes.
there's constant discovery and growth in science. We're always learning and growing in science, right? And so, also having flexibility in our beliefs, I would have to,
Hmm.
I'd be lying to you all if I said like the first things that I learned are things that I still carry with me. I've evolved and grown my belief system and my understanding as I've evolved in my practice and in my spirituality. But it's being able to let go of things that don't fit anymore, and being
Yes. Hmm.
flexible, because we only know what we know, right? And that's again also understanding that like we don't understand how people came to understand what they know, right? We don't know where they may have had the best intention to
Hmm.
learn. This is a mediumship podcast, right, Matt? So let's just talk about mediumship.
Yeah,
Somebody may have said, I want to
go
learn
for it.
mediumship, and they went to a mediumship class. And maybe this mediumship teacher was not on the up and up, as we like to say, and they taught this person some not such great practices. Well, this person did the right thing, and they went out and they sought education around this topic. It just so happened they didn't find the best teacher, right? But they did the right thing, and they
Yeah.
went to get education. We can't fault somebody for not knowing what they don't know, right? We should always, that's why we should always be seeking development. We should always be seeking resources. We should always be seeking to grow, because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
But understanding where somebody's coming from, always being willing to have the conversation, always like, how'd you come upon that? Where'd you learn that? Like, I think having understanding that, because I think there's also this context of like judging somebody for believing what they do, or judging somebody for doing what they do, and not meeting them where they are, if that makes sense.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you for sure. But I think that sometimes uh, we got to look at like the disempowerment, because from what I know in my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, I will never speak from somebody else's, is that the spirit world to me is really kind of love. It comes from a place of love, and it comes from a place of everybody goes to the same place. They've never told me anything otherwise. Now, do I hold space for the possibility? Yeah, I do. I do. But the spirit world has never been anything other than empowerment. It's empowering. It's beautiful. It moves the room. You can feel it when you watch a beautiful reading. But I think that like humans kind of step in, and they're kind of like, "Nah, I'm gonna misinterpret some stuff, right? Or I have a religious bias, I'm gonna creep that in there." But sometimes people can just be downright cruel to get money and to get, and so it's kind of being like cautious, having a healthy skepticism about even experiences that you're having, and just questioning. My fear really is that sometimes it can be really easy in the spiritual community to have one charismatic person take a beautiful idea and create a massive problem, and that
Mm-hmm.
problem is cultism.
Mm-hmm.
And cults can happen, and they can happen very quickly. And so I think when we all start into our spiritual journey, we get so excited that we believe everything because we really don't know a lot, right? And we can fall for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like when you accept one part of spirituality, you have to expect, or it, I don't want to call out one specific group, but I'm going to say New Age. Okay. But when we accept one part of a new age, we have to accept it all. It is a buffet, my children. You can pick and choose whatever you want to pick and choose, but just maybe look at the ones that are empowerment.
Mhm.
Even like when we use the word shadow work, right? Shadow work isn't necessarily a bad word, and people do take it in the context of a bad word, but it's just like looking at the root cause of your trauma and working on the root cause of your trauma. And then guess what? It's a good thing. So you can take that as a good thing, but it's empowering. It should be empowering, and it should be done by multiple people to back this up
Mhm.
as empowering. And I can tell you, shadow work is going to happen when you are in mediumship. 100%.
Mhm.
100%.
Mhm.
But then we use the words like that I find disempowering, like you said, ascension.
Mhm.
We're all going to ascend. I've seen people come unglued when somebody uses the word graduation day, and tomorrow's graduation day or next week's graduation day. You better be ready. And this can cause people to panic or, let's say, self harm. Sometimes, if they feel like they haven't done enough work closer to graduation day,
Mhm.
and that's scary. It's scary.
Mhm.
And I've also, yeah, it's just, I don't want to see anybody in that situation where they feel like they didn't do enough.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, Dana.
Well, we have to understand too, a lot of people come to the spirituality practices as a whole, just as a whole, sometimes as broken people. I mean, we're all broken, right? We've
Yeah.
all come hurt and whatever, but especially when we're hurting, we come seeking. That's why a lot of people seek religion. That's why a lot of people seek spirituality. It's because we're hurting. And that
Mhm.
charismatic
Mhm.
person may have that magic pill. There's somebody seeking that
Oh,
magic pill or those magic words or that magic language that's going to take that hurt away. The thing that I always want to
mhm.
caution people around is like, why is that person doing that? Is there a huge price tag around that? Is there something after that huge price tag? Because the other thing that happens behind this is sunken returns, right? So you do
Yeah.
you pay for a session with them and they're like, "Oh, we're going to need like 5 more sessions with you. And then you're going to need like the gold platinum package after this." Now, I'm not going to spill tea on somebody that we've seen on TikTok that does this stuff. But there is a practitioner on TikTok that like, okay, now there was like an online thing that they're like, you've got to get admission to our virtual, like, in the ether university
Campus.
campus. And I mean,
Mhm.
and it starts to get, and then all the people in the chat are like, oh yeah, I'm on the campus. And it was like, oh my god, like the people that were buying into
Yeah.
all of the stuff that was happening, and it wasn't empowering the person that needed help. It was, I'm going to do these like weird hand motions and make these weird noises and keep upselling you and keep upselling you. And what happens in that sunken return thing, you're like, well, I've already done 6 sessions. What's 5 more sessions? And they just keep on taking your money, taking your money, taking your
I
money.
must not be doing it right. So I've got to continue doing these sessions because I must not be doing it right. And she's telling me, or they're telling me, or he's telling me that I didn't try hard enough.
Hmm.
I've seen that. Also, I've seen people convince other people, and kind of twist it, that they seem a little bit okay, I'm the charismatic leader. Okay, I'm the charismatic leader. I've actually generally worked on Dana Willie, and I've made Dana Willie, I've helped her. So they might actually have the tools and be able to use the tools, but then they see the money come in and they're like, oh, I can profit off this. This seems really, really good. So I'm going to take Dana Willie and I'm going to put her right next to me and I'm going to do the practice. But then I'm going to manipulate it. So even Dana Willie doesn't know that I'm doing this, and draw more people in. And then they're using other people that are spiritual to get ahead. It can be very shady and very scary. And what really hurts me is also they'll use the words like suppressive person. Like, you are a suppressive person if you don't agree with them. That should be a red flag because spirituality should be welcoming in,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want to welcome everyone in. Everyone is welcome, whether you believe me or not. You can take what resonates and you can discard the rest. But if somebody's saying, you can't talk to me if you don't believe what I believe, you're too low vibrational and
Mm-hmm.
you're dragging our vibration down, you can no longer be in our spirit. That is cult like behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should definitely leave as much as you possibly can. If they're making you codependent financially on them, also saying, hey, you can't have access to this next level unless you give me money. And that's not development circles or classes, because you can opt out at any time. But they're saying, well, I'm only going to give you one part of your development, but your next part of your development is going to cost you $70,000, and then the next part's going to cost you $150,000, and the next part. That's cult like behavior as well. So it's all about separating, disempowering, and manipulating. I've also seen a lot of situations where people take vulnerability and will film people
Mm-hmm.
and get them to confess um, things that have happened to them, like traumas that, like during sessions, like they'll do like healing sessions on them, and then they'll have them confess of like what they might have done in a past life, or what they might have like. I'm gonna use this as context as a trigger warning, but I've heard this verbatim. Somebody did a past life regression on somebody. They ended up saying that they had molested their child in the past life, and then they tried to use that as blackmail.
Whoa.
So it can be very scary. It can be very scary. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about this on the podcast is that you don't know, because these people can come off very charismatic. And so using your discernment, kind of like looping it back around to discernment, is if something doesn't feel right to you, I want you to go, because spirituality should be empowering.
Mm-hmm.
It should lift you up. It should want to make you a better person. It shouldn't be stripping away your dignity, your humanity, other people's humanity, other people's actual like entities. Like calling somebody an NPC is disassociating them from the human race. So it's an us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human. It shouldn't be splitting camps between suppressive and non suppressive people. It should be inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's not any of those things, we got to look at what we're subscribing to and save ourselves before it gets any worse, because it can get worse very quickly. Most cults that I know are really good at self-help. They will start out as a self-help facade, is kind of where they usually entry is like self-help, like take this course and learn how to talk in public speaking, or take this course and you'll be empowered financially. And then as you start to get into it a little bit more in depth, you actually start to become brainwashed and indoctrinated into this behavior. And it all started out for just wanting to get better at something
Mm-hmm.
or to self-help at something.
Yeah.
So that's where my fear comes in. That's where my fear for the spiritual community really comes
Yeah.
in.
So a couple of things that I think about, because we're all, speaking of empowerment, we're always about
Mhm.
empowering the folks that listen to our podcast. So how do you empower? How do we empower folks? And one of the things that, some things to look at is, if you were to get a session or work with somebody, or even be in the, listening to them, or around somebody like this, do you feel
Yeah.
better after being with them or after a session? Or do you feel
Yeah.
worse? You should always feel
Hmm.
better. Now, that being said, there's some times where big healing can happen in a psychic session, because we just
Hmm.
dived in and we went through some really hard things, because tears can happen in a mediumship or a psychic session, right? When we're really diving into some things that need to be looked at, or when we're healing some big wounds. But you should overall leave better than you came in, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not leaving better than you came in, red flag number 1, right? Like that's something that you
Yeah.
should really be paying attention to. And Matt and I have said this before and I'll say it again, if you get in with somebody and you're 5 minutes, 10 minutes in and you're like the ick factor is there, you
Mm,
don't feel safe, you don't like it, it is okay for you to at that point say call it, I'm not feeling comfortable right now, I'd like my money back. It would be better for you to leave and not get your money back than to sit through the
yeah.
rest of it. Because I will tell you, I can't tell you how many people are like, I wasn't feeling like there was any proof being brought forward, but they said this, this, and this, and you carry it with you even if you don't believe it, right? Like even if there was no evidence around it, it's better for your well-being just to leave and to leave the money and leave. Hopefully they give you a refund. They should give you a refund. But if they're like, nope, I have no refunds, like that's okay. I'm gonna leave.
Opportunity lost. You know what I mean? Just take it as a loss, and
Hmm.
that's okay because you're walking out with your dignity, and you're walking out intact,
Hmm.
intact, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. So paying attention to your energy. How are you feeling? Do you feel safe? If you're feeling the ick,
Hmm.
that icky, that trust. You should always be feeling better. If there is this like what we really need to do after this is another session, is another session, is another session, that's another red flag. A good practitioner shouldn't make you dependent upon them. The-
Yeah.
even our development circles, Matt, I love our students. I love them, but it's not beneficial for them to stay with us in development forever, right? And
No.
I'm going to I
No.
get sad when each of them flies off out of the nest and doesn't, they wave at us and they're like, "Look, mom, look, dad, I'm doing real good." But
I could do it.
I can do it. I can do it. But it's not the reason why Matt and I do it is to keep you honed
Mm-mm.
in a circle forever or in classes or whatever. Look at the why of why the practitioner is doing that. Why are they doing the service? Is it to keep you coming back? Is it to keep you coming back? Or is it to empower you so that you eventually don't need them? So if there's this
Yeah.
like hard sell at the end of like, or what you really need is you need some oils, you need some essential oils. You need this crystal, you need this essential oil, you need this treatment, you need this, you need that. Red
Yeah.
flag. Like, no, they should be
Yeah.
empowering you afterwards.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I've been on that receiving end of you need to be in the bathtub and we're going to anoint you for $300. If something like that happens, leave. Don't pay them, leave. Most healers should be kind of like a one and done situation. I think we've talked to many practitioners that kind of either do a 6 month to a year, like you can't come back until it's 6 months and a year because you can become codependent on them, and codependency and spirituality is not healthy, and it's not good for anybody rather than the actual psychic or medium or spiritual practitioner versus the client. It's
Mhm.
not good. It's not good to be codependent on somebody for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you for stating that.
Yeah. So, any other tips that you can think of like some
Yeah,
red flags?
if they're if they're making you do anything that's against your morals, or they're doing anything that breaks your ethical code of how you live your life, no spiritual practitioner should ever make you do anything that you're not comfortable with, both physically and spiritually. If you're getting a Reiki session done and you feel uncomfortable, stop the Reiki session and ask questions. If you're doing a mediumship reading and something happens or something is weird and off to you, you should be able to ask questions and stop, because your voice in your reading and your healing is important. I always say to my clients, you deserve a reading that you need rather than the one that is being forced upon you. So if there's anything that you have questions on or you don't feel it is appropriate, please stop and please ask me any questions, because I want to empower them to know exactly what I'm doing at all times. They should feel comfortable at all times to ask any questions. And I, as a practitioner, and you as a practitioner should be transparent about our practice.
Yeah.
It is not something that should be gate kept.
Yeah. You,
So that is a huge red flag.
Yeah, I'm also like hesitant over urgency to book now. You should never
Mhm.
feel under urgency to book. or pressure to book. That's just not good. You should vet somebody before. I'm picky. That's just who I am as a person. I'm not going to let
Mhm.
anybody into my energy that I don't trust. And I'm going to be really picky, and I'm going to be very I'm going to vet a lot of people before I let them read me. And that's just who I am as a person. So
Yeah.
find out what they're about, watch them read multiple times, watch them talk multiple times. Can you watch them on YouTube? Can you do some research? Google their name. Like, are there any weird things? See what their reviews are. What have other
Mhm.
people said? Not people that they put on their website. I mean, listen, I got reviews on my website, but like whatever. Like, what are the if you Google their name, is there like any red flags popping up? Because you got to pay attention to that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. I think also understanding what you're going in for and doing the research of what you're going in for. Can it be cross referenced and cross checked on multiple ways? So, like for mediumship, before I got into mediumship, I actually studied the history of mediumship. So, I understand the spiritual movement, I understand the Bible, I understand that it can also be brought into multicultural societies. So, like, not just one culture believed in mediumship and it had to be set in stone, but it was being able to be cross-referenced in Mayan culture and in Celtic cultures and in the Bible, in Hebrew, in multiple. So I was able to be like, this seems like it actually can be factual.
Mhm.
So I just didn't trust it came from. Now, if somebody's telling you this is like a modality that's been made up and there's no way to research it, ask plenty of questions.
Mhm.
Where did you get this? Who taught you this? Where did it come from? And it's not to be invasive to the person that's the
Practice.
practitioner. They should be able to answer these questions because this is their livelihood. This is what they're doing. If they're trying to sell you something that's part of it as an addition. So I'm going to use this as an example. I'm not saying all practitioners do this, but it's just easy because it popped into my head for me to reference. So if I'm giving you healing and I'm saying, hey, Dana, I'm going to do some healing on you. Now you're going to have to pay me for an activation code. That seems like it should be a red flag. Why it should just be given to you
Mhm.
because we are doing this session. I'm going to do this. Are you okay with this? Consent
Mhm.
is also another red flag. If they force something on you without you wanting it, that is a red flag. You should not have anything done to you that you choose not to have done to you. I've seen that happen quite a bit as well and
Mhm.
can do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Activation is one of those other buzzwords that it's like, what does it mean?
Hmm.
What do you mean activation? Tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
Downloads,
Download.
even the word downloads,
Mhm.
right? So we also need to look at the words that we're using in conjunction of time, right? So spirituality is more than just the last 30 years, right? When was the word download came into our vernacular? Probably roughly around the late 80s,
Mhm.
maybe 80s. When can the verbiage be traced back into a contexture that makes sense to the actual practice of the actual spiritual group it's coming from,
Mhm.
right? And if these new words and these new practices are rooted in today, question it. And that's not bad. I mean, to question does not mean that you don't believe, but it just means questioning is good, right? Or if it's coming from a person that's only coming from one singular source in the last 100 years, that's a huge red flag.
Mhm.
And I don't want to speak ill of anybody, but if it's coming from one person and it's not coming from multiple people, it seems a little sketchy to me that I'm going to take extra work to make sure that I'm going to research a practitioner that would follow this practitioner to make sure that they are legitimate,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Not saying that new spiritual terms can't come out in the last 100 years, but we have been here for a very long time, a very, very long time, hundreds and thousands of years. Things can be traced back is all I'm saying. You can do some research and take the time to do it.
Yeah.
It's awesome what you can discover.
Yeah, be curious. And there's nothing wrong with doing
Hmm.
research and with being curious and with being skeptical. and being with discernment. These are not bad words. And anybody that would
No,
block you or not answer your questions is not the practitioner for you to work with. If they're not open to
no.
your questions or open to you diving into deeper into this, that's a huge red flag. It just is. It just is. And you should
Mhm.
always be moving forward into this because it is in alignment with you. Because again, it brings you joy because you have a soul pull, because it is feels in
Mhm.
alignment with you, not because it's a have to, not because it makes you feel bad, not because of fear, not because somebody told you you have to. And I feel like that's the control aspect. It's there's a control versus empower, right? Is this thing
Yes.
controlling you or empowering you? And really that and again, I want to urge everybody to have this flexibility and be
Yeah.
open-minded, because I don't want anybody to just like, this is the, be so stingent in there, like, this
Yeah.
is my
Yeah.
beliefs and I'm not going to believe anything else. Have an
Right.
open mind, but have discernment in your mind.
Yes. Have a healthy skepticism while you practice what you're practicing, but be knowledgeable about what you're doing. I'm telling you, Dana, the best thing for my mediumship was to look up the history of mediumship.
Mhm.
It was so it not only does it ground you in realism, but you almost appreciate the practice even more. Because you know what I learned about mediumship and history of mediumship?
Mhm.
People had to die to do what I can do today.
Mhm.
Oh, it gets me teary eyed. People died because they said that they saw people, right? So, like, the best example that always moves me, and I get so teary eyed, is Joan of Arc. We burn her to the cross because she talked to God. And so, people had to die to do this. And so, doing things with integrity and respect is also showing honor to those who had sacrificed their lives for us to be able to freely speak upon the spirituality that we practice. And so I always want to leave people feeling empowered better than I left them, pushing forward what I'm trying to do. Right? Because when we take advantage of people, what the naysayers and the skeptics say about us is true.
Mhm.
We're just proving them right. And the people that are honestly doing this work, it hurts.
Mhm.
So I always try to do, and I know this is just like a martyr thing to say, but I'm going to say it is that I hope my readings help solidify yours. And in a grander scheme of things, of help participate by putting spirituality and mediumship in some sort of validity in history of being like, this was true,
Mhm.
this was true,
Mhm.
and it's changing hearts and minds.
Mhm.
But the only the way you can do that is using discernment. So even if you've gotten a reading from us and you don't believe it and you have healthy skepticism during the reading, because I had this happen to me this week, I love you, because you just didn't take what I said for face value. You
Mhm.
questioned, and that's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Always live in a healthy skepticism.
Mhm. I'd much rather have that, if I'm honest. If
Hmm.
I'm honest.
Hmm.
I we always say the mundane before the magical, right? And I do want to touch on this just for a moment, cuz
Oh, let's go.
Hollywood.
Let's go. I got time, girl.
Oh, wait. Should we
I'm putting on my chapstick for this one.
Okay.
Oh, it's gonna be real good. Okay, let's go. Mundane over magical.
Mundane over magical.
Hmm.
Just because there's a lot of amazing phenomenon, and spirit is amazing in what they can do.
I agree.
They can make lights flicker, they can move things. The power of the spirit world is amazing. But not every time a light flickers is it spirit. Not every time we see a little thing on a screen is it an orb. Not every single time something is one place and then we expect it to be another did it mean that it was moved by spirit. We have
Agreed.
to look at the mundane to appreciate the magical. Is the wiring in our house sufficient? Is the light bulb screwed in all of the way? When we
Hmm.
can look at all, can we take that light, that lamp, and plug it into another outlet and get it to do the same thing? Spirit is intelligent,
Yeah.
and I will tell you, they'll do the same thing again in another outlet. So test it, push the
Hmm.
boundaries.
Hmm. They will do it again. They love us interacting with them. But you know, one thing that I've learned about the spirit world and stuff like that, you have to earn it.
Hmm.
They won't just do it. The setting needs to be right. The vibration needs to be right. We need to work for it. So like that's table tipping is a really good example of that. It doesn't just happen the first try. You actually have to build the power to move that table, to have spirit do that, and you got to do it consistently over and over and over again. And so when we do it and we show up for spirit and it happens, it's more magical.
Hmm.
It will not happen at a whim. And I think kind of ties back to spiritual signs and signs from spirit and all that stuff. If it makes you some sort of comfort, who am I to tell you no? But just have some critical thinking skills and
Hmm.
ask them to do it again, because they will do it again. They love talking in pattern. They
Hmm.
love it.
They love it.
Hmm.
And it's not to say that it's not real, but
Right.
everything, our cameras are so sensitive. We have like these
Hmm.
amazing freaking cameras on everything, on our phones, on our computer, on everything now. And it will pick up pet dander. It'll pick up like the slightest little thing. So being very discerning about what is an orb or what isn't an orb, not believing, watch it. Is there something
Hmm.
there? There's just, I feel like I'm in the middle of orb gate right now on like, I just feel like
You're the wet blanket
I
of
really
Orgate.
am. I am the wet blanket of orb gate, and I'm not, and I've seen orbs, and when they're there, it is so phenomenal and beautiful and amazing. But when you
Hmm.
get going on some things out there and it's like, nope, nope, that wasn't an orb. That was because then you can see,
Hmm.
like, did they move their arm? What where, was it see-through? We also a lot of us have these cool little lights going on behind us that even will manipulate those pieces of dust. It could be a little bug. It can be a lot of different things. So we want to have a
Right.
lot of discernment over, are these things really there? And because we're watching these things on a screen and we're not actually in the room ourselves, we have to also have discernment that, like, what are we watching? And that's not to say whoever is on the screen is trying to cheat us or try
Trick
to
us.
trick us,
Yeah.
but you're not in the room. You're not messing around with it. So use your discernment. Does it feel real to you? And again, I'm not, I am a little bit of a party pooper, but use your discernment. Not everything is an orb. Not every time you see something fly
You,
across somebody's screen is it an orb.
yeah, you don't need to be a party pooper, Dana, but you can be a old pooper.
Yeah. Sometimes
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I
sometimes
agree with
that
you.
missing pen on your desk isn't because grandpa moved it. It's because your kid came down and stole your pen off your desk. So,
Or you could have been so in your head. Have you ever done that where
mhm,
you're so in your head that you grab something, you don't remember grabbing it, and then it's somewhere else? That can happen. I'm that dumb.
mhm,
I lose my shit all the time. But spirit can move objects, but when it happens, it happens, and but it'll come through with evidence that they
mhm,
moved it. Trust me, they want to brag that they moved that pen.
mhm, mhm. So
They want to brag.
ask them to do it again. Test them. Plug that lamp that just did that into another light socket and just see if it does it on its own, and then ask it questions. Say, if this is a
Yeah.
yes, go real bright. If it's a no, go real light. Ask it some intelligent questions, see if it interacts. If it doesn't, it's okay. If it wasn't magical, it's okay. But if it does, it makes the magical that much more magical and it makes it amazing.
Or ghost boxes. Ghost
Hmm.
boxes. just know, I'm going to be the wet blanket. So you're the wet blanket of words. You know what I'm the wet blanket of? Ghost boxes. Do you know some of them are pre-programmed with words?
Mm-hmm.
Like the apps have the word demon pre-programmed into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the algorithm of that word?
Mm-hmm.
What's the algorithm of get out?
Mm-hmm.
What's the algorithm of help?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So just don't trust things, trust but validate. Can this be debunked? Can this be even in like the TikTok videos with the paranormal, is the object moving fully in the camera? Have you always noticed that when the
Mm-hmm.
shit moves, it's never fully on camera?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever noticed that? Why does it never move and it's like purposely in the center of the room with nothing attached to it? Or if it's on a table, oh, those always get me. Those always get me when they have like an object, a metal object on the table, but you don't realize that somebody's underneath the table with the magnet
Mm-hmm.
moving it around the table. Question everything. Question everything. And if you have no answer for it and it's been debunked, it's magical.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's power of the spirit world. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily evil. So
Yeah.
remember
There's
our bias as well.
there's that too, right? And Hollywood makes us
Mm-hmm.
think that it's supposed to be a certain way, and there's a lot of shows on TV that make us feel like it's got to be ooky
Mm-hmm.
spooky wooky wooky. Have discernment around everything in your spiritual practice, in your
Yeah.
spirituality, in everything that you digest. And does that make us party poopers in the wet blanket? I mean, I still think we're fun at cocktail parties, but
Oh, fuck yeah. We're hilarious. I take my shirt off and yell at ghosts for you, Dana Willie.
which is why I keep you around, if I'm honest. But
Okay, good. Thank you.
but but keep your head on straight. No, there's
Yeah.
there's somewhere along the line it made it feel like as soon as you like embrace spirituality on some level, it like you had to like let go of being a grounded human being, a grounded logical human being. And Matt and I are here
Yeah.
to tell you that's not how that works. You can still be a grounded logical human being and still believe in spirituality and spiritual concepts.
Yeah. So rather than doing something nice for somebody today, I want you to go research something that you've been practicing and just learn a little bit more about it because knowledge is power.
Mhm.
Where did it come from?
Mhm.
And leave it in the comments. What did you research that you want to share with the rest of the people on their YouTube page? Go to our YouTube, type in the what you research, and just put it what you originate or a fun fact you've learned about your practice. Because I love learning. Learning is awesome. So teach us something about spirituality that you've learned in the last 24 hours
Yeah.
in the comment section.
Yeah. Well, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
you are the light of 100,000 fun facts.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. That's like the best compliment. Thank you so much, Dana Willie. And you are the juice of 100,000 watermelons.
Ooh. And with that, you guys buckle up for next month for March Mediumship Madness, where
Mm.
we are going to have a
Mm.
new medium guest each week. Buckle up, Buttercups. You're going to love
Mhm.
it.
They fantastic. Oh, I get so excited for this. And also, if you're not following us on Patreon, give us a little follow on Patreon. We got some really awesome, cool content coming, and we're excited. So we love you all. You're in our hearts. And from Dana and Mads, do something nice for somebody today and research.
We love you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.